week where we're going to bring you your waiver wire must adds for week 7. So, a lot has happened in week 6, and it's me, your host Pravat Parmar. But yeah, we're going to get into obviously the must add pickups here for your week 7, but. In week 6, we encountered a few different things, right? No, not a ton of major injuries, but we did have Emeka Egbuka go down with a hamstring injury, not expected to be out there this upcoming week here. So we've experienced our first head coach get fired here. So, it wasn't working out for the Titans and Brian Callahan. So we're going to see how that works out moving forward. We got some names here for you in this show on, regarding that as well. And in week 7, we are also experiencing buys for the Ravens as well as the Bills. So, not too many teams on buys, but some prominent players there. Hopefully, the Ravens can figure it out coming out of the buy. But until then, we're not going to see them this week. But yeah, I got 7 players here for you. You guys know the drill. 7 players from my least priority to my most priority pickups. And as always, you guys keep the comments coming in the chat. I'm going to go over 2 players. I'm going to chat, and then so on and so forth. So keep the questions coming. Definitely love them. And yeah, we're here to help you out. So first and foremost, for the first pickup, my least waiver wire priority, I'm thinking we should Harold Fannin. So, in this last week, he's had a monster breakout game: 10 targets, 7 catches, 81 yards versus Pittsburgh. Really strong performance, and those 10 targets may be a little inflated because Dylan Gabriel actually threw for 52 times. But he makes this list once again. He was a hot topic earlier in the season, and and now he's actually making this list because David Njoku got hurt, right? So David Njoku hurt his knee. He's listed as questionable, and so this is a huge reason why he's making the list. This team's not really going, they're not really going in the right direction in terms of record wise. They have a stout defense, but I can see this team leaning towards the youth movement, and Harold Fannin is one of the big headliners when it comes to that and the Browns. So, few things to note. He was second in the pecking order in terms of targets, only trailing Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy had 13. He had 10. And he comes with a plus matchup here coming up in week 7 against Miami. So definitely roll him out there. He's out there in your waiver wire. You can spend about 2 to 3% of your fab on him, especially if you have one of those tight ends that are on a bye. All right, so next up here, now this guy we're going to be talking about next is really breaking out the last 2 weeks. Kendrick Bourne, another huge week, back-to-back weeks. This week he had 9 targets, catches, 142 yards. That's a second consecutive week having 142 yards. So look, the Niners are banged up. We know that, right? So as long as Mac Jones is the starter, Kendrick Bourne should not be on your waiver wire. They're not predicted to have Brock Purdy back this week. He had a setback with his toe injury, and Mac Jones is really running the show, really performing really well. He has a connection with Kendrick Bourne going back to their Patriots days. Like I said, back-to-back 142 yards efforts. And look, the Niners are bringing players back slowly but surely. George Kittle's expected to be back in week 7, so we expect to see him out there. This could actually open a few things up for Kendrick Bourne. So may not see that amount of targets, but I do believe that while he's out there, while we're waiting on the other 49ers pass catchers to come back, you have to treat Kendrick Bourne like a wide receiver too. Another huge loss for the 49ers on the defensive side of the ball. Fred Warner out for the season with a broken and dislocated ankle. Definitely tough to see, especially as a Niners fan. But that just means that the Niners are going to have to going to have to chase points and score a lot of points to be in games after they lost Bosa and now Fred Warner, a bunch of rookies on that defense. They're going to be holding it down, but they're going to have to be chasing points. So Pearsall's status is up in the air as well. And and next week they got a tough matchup against Atlanta, and so I would roll him out there and throw him out, like I mentioned. Expect wide receiver two numbers coming from him. So, but yeah, let's take it to the chat. I have a few questions coming in. I hate this update. Believe me, as a Niners fan, I'm right there with you. Help me at RB. Somebody other than Vidal and Bam, please. There's a few players out there that we can talk about. I have somebody on here, so just hang on out there. We are going to talk a little bit of Bam, a little bit of Vidal, or Vidal rather, but just stick in there. We got some players here for you. Um, uh, uh, Excuse me if I mispronounced this. Aduhan getting crushed with injuries. Who do you like most, Hollywood, Booty, or Coker? That's really good. Look, of the two, I'm leaning towards Booty and Coker. Coker's coming back. There's a lot of opportunity there in Carolina as far as your pass catchers. Booty is also one I like as well. Hollywood, they're getting Rasheed Rice back, so they're each and every one of those pass catchers on Kansas City. Their target share is going to be diminished because Rasheed Rice is a target monster. So I would be leaning Booty, then Coker, and then Hollywood as a distant third between the two. KV90, can we drop Troy Franklin? I need a starter, and I'd rather start one of the Bucks wide receivers. I think you can. I think you can drop Troy Franklin. I would. Tez is probably a better start here for you. But yeah, you can drop him and not feel bad about it. So. All right, you guys keep the questions coming in. Definitely appreciate them. I'm going to handle them as we come along. But let's get to the next two. I know you hear a lot about this guy. Bam Knight is going to be my next pickup. He had 11 rushes, 34 yards, and a touchdown. He had one catch for 20 yards, and versus Indy, which is a pretty strong defense, rush defense. So, he's not as high on this list. I know very early on in right before the game started, he was labeled and listed as the starter. But, him and Michael Carter really shared similar roles, like the similar amount of touches rather, but they have different roles, right? So Carter is a more between the 20s guy. Playing that third down role, catching more passes. Whereas Bam is going to get a lot more of that early down work, just his stature. He's about 20 pounds bigger than Michael Carter. So he's going to get that early down role as well as the goal line work, right? So that's pretty strong when you're considering that this is, one of the top 10, or top 10, top 7 in rushing. This Arizona, this Arizona Cardinals offense here, huge on running the rock. So he should definitely be rostered while we're out there. If you miss on Bam, pick up Michael Carter. If Michael Carter's not there, if Michael Carter's there and Bam's picked up, either one they're going to be good. So you can kind of interchange the two. He's going to give you flex value, and he's going to be more like a flex value and bye week filler while we're still waiting on Trey Benson. So Trey Benson got injured, put on IR 2 weeks ago. That was about a 4 to 6 week injury, so we're still about 2 to 4 weeks away from seeing Trey Benson. And they're going to have a matchup against Green Bay, which is a pretty stout rush defense and just defense overall. But we've seen what they were able to do against Indy, really put up a strong fight. So Bam, if he's out there, grab him. He's going to give you some flex value, especially if you have Derrick Henry or James Cook on bye this week. All right, so next person we're going to be talking about here, my next pickup, must add, Kayshon Boutte. So look, had a really good game, one of his best games since week 1. 5 targets, 5 catches, 93 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Very, very solid outing. His best outing since week 1. He's really standing. He's really, making his way out here, shining as the number 2 wide receiver. In 2 wide receiver sets, he's out there a lot. This offense's passing game is kind of expanding now and growing. So they can support more than one wide receiver now. So huge pickup. He happens to be one of the more explosive pass catching weapons, which, on this Patriots team the last few years, they didn't really have. And so he's definitely a good pickup here for you. Led all Pats pass catchers in targets, catches, and yards here. So, you can see his explosiveness. He's averaging 16 yards per catch. Currently, the wide receiver 32, right? So, solid flex option and a cake matchup, a pretty easy matchup next week coming against the Tennessee Titans. So, you're going to want to roll him out there. He's somebody who I think will still fly under, a little under radars with other names out there like Downs, Coker, and whatnot. Kayshon Boutte is going to be a lot less owned than those guys. So you can probably spend like under 5% of your fab and feel comfortable getting him. So Kayshon Boutte, definitely want to be out there. But yeah, let's jump into more of these questions, guys. Like I mentioned, keep them coming. Really appreciate it. We're here to help. Bill Joel, should I drop Pittman or Allen for Bourne? I wouldn't. I wouldn't drop Pittman or Allen for Bourne, because Bourne, look, he's going to be as good as he is until Pearsall comes back, and until the rest of their pass catchers come back, and as well as Brock Purdy, right? So I know him and Mac have a good connection, and I know him and Mac are going to be connecting as well next week. So by that point, he's going to be a wide receiver, put you wide receiver two value. But Pittman's nursing a hamstring. I still like Pittman to come back healthier, and if you make that move, then in about 2 weeks you'll be regretting it. So definitely wouldn't drop Pittman for Bourne. I would look for somebody else. Sal T, when is Aaron Jones coming back? Aaron Jones should be coming back here, I would say, in the next few weeks. Aaron Jones is cool. I like Aaron Jones. Even if he does come back in the next few weeks, he's still older, still injury prone. At the time, if I'm the Aaron Jones owner, what I'm doing is like waiting, and when he does come back, maybe a week out, put him on the trade block, right? So because I know they like the other running back that they have there, Jordan, and Aaron Jones, old, can still get injured and is just very injury prone. So as soon as you get that positive news on when he's coming back, put him on the trade block. All right, guys, keep these questions coming in, and but let's jump to the last two players I have to talk about here for you. So, next player I have up on the waiver wire pickup, Tajay Spears. Right, so this is a good guy. This is a good one to pick up. Had 5 rushes for 31 yards, four catches on 4 targets, only for 19 yards, but a good. There's a few good things about him, and the reason why I'm saying you should pick him up. So he's seen about 59% snap share in this last game, but this last game is indicative to how probably the rest of their season is going to be. Right, so they're not the best offensive team out there. So, and you guys can see that they're kind of hard to watch, but that negative game script, they're constantly going to be playing for behind. Tajay Spears fits that more so than Pollard, right? Pollard's a better overall like true runner than him, but Tajay Spears is the more explosive player, right? Especially like a better pass catcher, get him out in space, and he can do his thing. I talked about it at the top of the show. Their head coach just got canned, right? So they could be moving towards a youth movement here, which benefits obviously Tajay Spears, but they're going to be playing from behind a lot, in that negative game script. So I would definitely prioritize him. If he's out there, great. I would also consider putting Pollard on the trade block, right? There's not going to be much you can get for Pollard right now, but his value, if you add him in a deal, it's something that can push them, push that deal over the edge. Definitely something I could do. But yeah, Tajay is going to be a weekly flex option, bye-week filler here for you. And he can have some really explosive games. If you're in one of those like high matchup games, you're going against one of the top teams and you need a higher ceiling player, That's definitely Tajay Spears. So he has a pretty good matchup against New England next week as well. So definitely keep him out there. You could consider spending about, like, I would say maybe like 5 to 7% of your fab on him, because I really do think that they're going to start phasing out these older players. And you we already seen Calvin Ridley get hurt. Pollard is 29, almost 30. And I can see some of these players like coming up with these nicky knack injuries. And if that's the case, then Tajay Spears is like back end RB2 territory. So that's kind of why you want him. All right, and then the last pickup number six. The drum roll, please. This is somebody who has definitely showed out. Kamani Vidal, right? So, you know, 18 rushes, 124 yards, four targets, three catches, 14 yards, and a reception touchdown. So, there was a lot of chatter last week whether it's is he the one to pick up? Is Haskins the one to pick up? He definitely sees control of that backfield. He's the more athletic one of the two. Haskins more a bigger body guy, whereas Kamani Vidal, like I mentioned, a little bit more explosive and is just an overall solid. He really, really took control of the backfield, like I said. So Omarion Hampton has obviously he went on IR last week. I don't think that this is just going to be a 4 week injury, a 4 week return. I see him, and they've been talking about it a little bit. I can see Omarion Hampton coming back more so after their week 12 bye. So Kamani Vidal is somebody out there that if he is out there, he's going to give you a weekly RB2 with some weeks providing RB1 upside. In this Chargers offense where they really run heavy, explosive, you can't really stack the box with those pass catchers and Herbert slinging the rock out there. So he has a little bit of a tougher matchup this upcoming week against the Colts. Still would see him as an RB2 in this matchup. And if he is out there, you can consider spending anywhere between 25-30% of your fab budget. If you have a top three waiver priority, let it go because and go get Kamani Vidal. I do think he's worth it because he could be that difference between you being like a middling team to really making a solid push to lock in your playoff roster spot. Just understanding that Amarion's going to be out until probably after that week 12 bye. So that is the six players I have to pick up. I want to get into some questions, and keep the questions coming in because this is really why we're here. I want to help you guys out with your leagues. So I got Jay Coop, Jew Coop. Should I drop Tyrone Tracy Jr. for Vidal? That is something I would do. Cam Scattaboo is here. Cam Scattaboo is here to stay. They've been calling him the Scat Pack. As long as he's not running into a wall, knocking himself out the game, he is going to get the lion's share of the carries there in New York. So I would definitely drop Tyrone Tracy for Vidal. Good question. Keep them coming. Mr. Chirps, am I worried about Mason Taylor? Anybody else I can look at for TE tight end? Yeah. So great question. AJ Barner is somebody I wanted to talk about. He didn't just make the cut, but AJ Barner for Seattle, he looks really good. I think he's at three straight double digit fantasy outputs. That Seattle offense, that Seattle passing game is really growing into its own now. So he's somebody that I would look at. If you are worried about Mason Taylor, as well as Fannin, I think AJ Barner is going to have more long term value. So that's definitely somebody I would look at. But I don't know. Mason Taylor, I don't know why you would be worried about him. I think his value is actually going to be going up, especially with the here. Give me 1 second. Especially with the injury to their number one pass catcher, Garrett Wilson, who's expected not to be out there. Um, I actually like Mason Taylor as well, so I wouldn't be too worried about him. All right. Mr. Lava, Evan Ingram, Zach Ertz, or Theo Johnson. Who is the best chance moving forward? Great question, right? I was really big on Evan Ingram coming into this season. He hasn't really showed it. There hasn't really been outside of Sutton like a consistent pass catcher over there. You know, you'll see Mims pop off. You'll see Ingram pop off. You'll see Troy Franklin occasionally. You know, 1 or 2 weeks pop off. I'm of the three that we're talking about. I'm the least favorable on Evan Ingram. Zach Ertz and Theo Johnson. I'm big on Theo Johnson. It seems like he has a defined role and a connection with the rook out there. But I do like Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz has been pretty consistent outside of last week. So, especially with the injuries they have at wide receiver to Scary Terry, Zach Ertz has been pretty consistent. They look for him a lot in the red zone. Theo Johnson, they look for a lot in the red zone as well. If I'm choosing between the two, Zach Ertz and Theo Johnson, I'm going to go for a more polished, dependable passing offense, and that is Zach Ertz. Has a carved out role, long in the tooth, but still producing. But great question. Keep them coming. I'm ranking them Zach Ertz, edging out Theo Johnson, and a few steps lower, Evan Ingram. All right, Jay Lewis Garcia. Do we continue to roster Jawan Jennings? You know what? And this is coming from a Niners fan. I'm huge. Jawan Jennings, the player, real football, is good, is solid. Right now, he's harboring 5 broken ribs. Even when he's out there, he's not really that high in the pecking order. Soon, we're going to see these pass catchers come back healthy I have about 15, 16 leagues. In my redraft leagues, I did drop Jawan Jennings. So you can feel comfortable doing it too. Let somebody else pick him up. He's going to be one of those players that, somebody else picks him up, they see him, and if they want to start him, he can go, 1 catch, 3 targets, 7 yards, and, hopefully he plays through the full games. But yeah, Jay Luis, you can feel comfortable dropping Jawan Jennings. All right. Bill Joel, how is Henderson not the starter in New England with Stevenson's fumble issues? Great question, man. Your guess is as good as mine. It's his head coach is just a loyal guy, right? And Stevenson, although he does fumble, he is talented, right? He is talented. And I do see Henderson taking over that role later on in the season, or just maybe even just being consistently like a 50-50. But that's tough, man. That's tough. I'm a diehard Sacramento Kings fan. I'm loyal to a fault. It seems like that's how the head coach for New England is as well. But Stevenson, one thing you can count on is he is going to fumble. Eventually, his coach is of it, and then we can get one more explosive player on that New England offense. And buy low on Henderson right now. I would say that buy low on Henderson. All right, Carlos Burris. Who should I trade Derrick Henry for? This is a tough one, right? Because Derrick Henry is just not performing outside of really that week 1. He's just not performing. And it's not the ideal situation because obviously Lamar Jackson's hurt. And that whole offense really hasn't looked good. If you are going to trade Derrick Henry, I would wait until he has a bigger game coming out of this bye. Probably, I would assume that they would figure some things out, the best ways to use him. I mean, they paid him, so they're definitely going to use him. I know he's definitely in that game plan, but I would trade him. It depends on what you have. If you're deeper at running back, if not, if you've picked up some of these other late round running backs that are really doing good, Jamal Williams and whatnot, I would pair him up with a weaker wide receiver and maybe get an upgrade at wide receiver. Right? I know a lot of teams right now have a lot of injuries and a lot of misses. Um, you could probably. I mean, that's what sorry about the technical difficulties, guys. But yeah, let's jump into these questions here. Um, should I trade for, should we drop Ollie Gordon? Yeah, you could definitely drop Ollie Gordon. Feel comfortable dropping Ollie Gordon. All right, guys. I'm sorry again about the technical difficulties. Just to recap, the top six waiver wire players for you to add, the must adds here. We got Harold Fannin, tight end, really good matchup. We got Kendrick Bourne, a consistent wide receiver too, while Mac Jones is in and while those 49ers are struggling to get healthy. We got Bam Knight, solid running back. Has a pretty good situation here. We got Kayshon Boutte plus matchup against Tennessee. I think Kayshon Boutte has definitely has some long term value here. And then Tajay Spears versus New England. That negative game script is going to keep him on the field versus Tony Pollard. And then last but definitely not least, Kamani Vidal locked in RB2. I think Omarion Hampton's going to be out until after his Week 12 bye, so he is going to definitely get you. He's definitely going to get you some solid RB2 weeks with weekly running back upside. So that's our Week 7 pickups here at Bleacher Report. It's your boy Prabhat Parmar checking out. Appreciate you guys hanging with us.